25 people, Lauren said, tapping her phone like she was announcing the weather report. My whole family's coming for Christmas this year. Isn't that exciting? I looked around the living room, our living room, and took in the twinkling lights, the half-decorated tree, and the pile of unopened Amazon boxes she'd ordered for holiday aesthetics. Exciting, I repeated, nodding slowly. Then I smiled a calm, steady smile that made her blink. Good. Then I'll be gone by morning. Let's see how long you last without me. She laughed. Of course she did. Lauren always thought everything was a joke until the punchline hit her. Oh, Richard, you're so dramatic. You can't just run off before Christmas. Watch me, I said quietly, setting down my mug. Her laughter faltered. For 5 years, I had let her talk to me that way in my own house, the one I'd built board by board after retiring from construction. For 5 years, I'd bitten my tongue for the sake of my son, Ethan, and what little peace still existed between us. But that morning, standing in the middle of a home that no longer felt like mine, I knew something inside me had finally snapped. Lauren tilted her head, glossy blonde hair, catching the soft glow of the fairy lights. Don't be grumpy, Richard. You love Christmas. You can help with dinner again just like last year. Last year, I'd cooked for 12 hours straight, while she took photos for her luxury family life blog, pretending every dish was her creation. She got 5,000 likes and a brand deal. I got heartburn. I'm not cooking this year, I said. Her eyebrows shot up. Excuse me, I said, I repeated. I'm not cooking, cleaning, decorating, or doing anything that resembles servitude. If 25 people are coming, they can fend for themselves. She blinked, her perfectly painted smile trembling. You're joking. No, I said softly. I'm retired, not hired. The silence between us grew thick. Outside, snow was falling, muffling the city sounds. Inside, only the low hum of the refrigerator filled the room. She finally crossed her arms, trying to regain control. You can't just abandon us. This is Ethan's family, too. I leaned back in my chair. Ethan's family can host his in-laws however he wants. But I won't be here for the circus. Circus? Her voice sharpened. My family is not a circus. No, I said, standing up, but you're the ringmaster. She stared at me, speechless for once. I could see the calculation in her eyes, the way she was already rewriting this conversation for later, when she'd twist it into something dramatic to tell my son. I didn't care. For the first time in years, I didn't care how she'd spin it. Ethan came home that evening, the smell of snow and office coffee clinging to his coat. Hey, Dad, he said, distracted, scrolling through his phone. Lauren told me the big news. 25 guests, huh? You'll help her, right? I didn't look up from my book. No, I won't. He froze mid-step. What do you mean I'm leaving tomorrow? You two can handle Christmas however you like. Ethan laughed awkwardly, like he thought I was teasing. You're serious, completely. Dad, come on. It's Christmas. You can't just, I can, and I will. Lauren stood in the doorway, arms folded, wearing that smirk that always made me think of a spoiled child daring someone to scold her. See, Ethan? Your father's being impossible again. Ethan sighed. Dad, she's been planning this for weeks. It means a lot to her. So did respect, I said, closing the book. That used to mean a lot to me. For a moment, none of them said a word. Then Lauren broke into her trademark bright laughter, the kind that used to charm sponsors and followers online. He's just being dramatic, Ethan. He loves to threaten, but never follows through. She was wrong. That was the difference this time. Dinner that night was silent. Lauren scrolled through her phone, muttering about table settings and guest seating charts. Ethan typed emails for work, pretending not to notice the tension. I ate quietly, the clink of my fork against the plate sounding louder than usual. When I finished, I wiped my hands on the napkin and stood up. I'm not joking, you know, I said. I've already booked a place for the holidays. Lauren's fork paused mid-air. Where? Somewhere peaceful. That's not an answer. No, I said. It isn't. She dropped the fork onto her plate, metal clattering. This is ridiculous. You're running away because you can't handle a little company. I turned to her, meeting her glare with steady calm. No. I'm leaving because I've spent 5 years being treated like help in my own home. And I'm done. Her face twisted, caught between fury and disbelief. You can't do this to us. What will my family think? Maybe they'll think you should have asked before inviting 25 people to someone else's house. Ethan tried to defuse the situation, rubbing his temples. Dad, please, let's not fight. It's just for a few days. After Christmas, everything will go back to normal. I almost laughed. Normal, I repeated. You mean the version of normal where your wife tells me how to fold napkins and you pretend not to notice? Don't drag me into this, Ethan muttered. Too late, I said. Lauren pushed back her chair, standing tall, eyes flashing. Fine. Leave then. But don't come crawling back when we prove we can handle things without you. I look forward to seeing that, I replied, grabbing my coat. I stepped outside into the night air, the cold biting but refreshing after weeks of suffocating civility. The street was quiet, only the soft crunch of snow beneath my boots. From inside, I heard Lauren's voice rising again, fast and frantic, followed by Ethan's muffled attempts to calm her. The same old cycle. Only this time, I wasn't part of it. As I stood under the streetlight, snowflakes catching on my coat, I thought about the years that led here, the silent compromises, the swallowed pride, the dinners where I cooked and smiled while being treated like background furniture. Maybe this Christmas, I wasn't walking away from family. Maybe I was walking back toward myself. When I returned inside to pack my things, Lauren had disappeared upstairs, probably venting to her followers about her difficult father-in-law. Ethan sat at the dining table staring at nothing. Dad, he said quietly. Is this really necessary? Yes. He nodded slowly. I guess I can't stop you. No, son, I said, placing a hand on his shoulder. You can't, but you can start noticing who's fighting for peace and who's fighting for control. Upstairs, I could hear drawers opening, doors slamming, Lauren packing for her performance, not for practicality. I went to my study, opened my drawer, and pulled out a small black notebook. Inside were notes I'd kept for months, receipts, account statements, emails, things I'd noticed but never mentioned. The evidence of how deep her manipulation went. I didn't need anger to fuel me anymore. I had proof and a plan. I zipped my suitcase slowly, deliberately. On the dresser sat a photo of my late wife, Helen, smiling in front of this very Christmas tree years before it became a prop for online videos. I looked at her gentle face and whispered, I think it's time to take back what's ours. Downstairs, the lights from the tree flickered weakly, reflecting off the empty wine glasses Lauren had left scattered from last night's rehearsal dinner. I unplugged the cord, letting the room fall into soft darkness. By tomorrow morning, I'd be gone, leaving behind a house full of lights, but no warmth. A family gathering waiting for a host who no longer served. Sometimes the best revenge doesn't look like anger. It looks like silence backed by a plan. And as I lay in bed that night, listening to the faint hum of the heater, I realized something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. 5 years of silence teaches you a lot about people, about how they speak to you when they think you have nowhere else to go, about how easily respect can slip away the moment they realize you'll never fight back. I sat on the back porch that night, coffee growing cold in my hands, watching the snow settle over the backyard. The lights from the neighboring houses glowed soft and warm, families gathering inside for dinner. In my house, laughter had long ago turned into background noise for someone else's performance. It wasn't always like that. After Helen died, the house was quiet, lonely, yes, but honest. I filled the silence with her favorite music, kept her garden alive, built furniture to stay busy. Ethan visited on weekends, we shared takeout, talked about football. For a while it felt like maybe we'd find a new rhythm. Then he met Lauren. The first time she walked through that door, she called me Dad, before I even remembered her name. She baked a pie, complimented my woodworking, and said things like, "You must have been such a great husband." Helen would have liked her, I thought. She was polite, polished, confident. The kind of woman who made everything look perfect on the surface. They married within a year, and that's when the tone changed. Lauren began rearranging everything for a better flow, she said. My wife's hand-woven curtains disappeared, replaced with something modern. The old oak dining table I built was pushed into storage so she could buy one, Instagram-friendly. I told myself it was normal that every new generation needs their space. But one night I found her tossing out Helen's Christmas ornaments, tiny glass bells from our first winter together. "These are chipped," she said carelessly, dropping them into a trash bag. "They're not just ornaments," I told her. "They're memories." She smiled like that meant nothing. "Memories collect dust, Richard. You should let go." That was the first time I felt something inside me break. Over the next few months, my role in the house shifted in ways I didn't even notice at first. She'd say, "Could you fix the light switch, Richard? You're so handy." Or, "You know how to make the best roast. Could you cook when my parents visit?" It started as politeness. Then it became expectation. Before long, every dinner, every party, every celebration fell on me. I cooked while she posted videos online of herself hosting. She'd film me from behind, never showing my face, captioning it, "Our home, our work." Her followers adored her. "You're amazing, Lauren. You do it all." She did nothing. I did everything. Ethan didn't see it or pretended not to. He was always buried in work eyes, tired from the screen. Whenever I tried to bring it up, he'd say, "Dad, just go with it." She's under a lot of stress. It keeps her happy. Keeping her happy meant swallowing my pride every day. One Christmas, she hosted what she called an influencer dinner. She invited a dozen of her friends, all with ring lights and designer coats, and turned my living room into a filming studio. I spent the whole day roasting a turkey glazing ham, preparing side dishes for 20. She came downstairs in a sparkly red dress, kissed Ethan on the cheek, and said, "Smile, honey. This is going to look perfect online." During dinner, one of her friends pointed at me and laughed. "Wow, your chef's really dedicated." Lauren giggled, sipping her wine. "He's not a chef, he's my father-in-law." "Same thing, right?" The room laughed. I didn't. That night, when everyone left, I was still cleaning at midnight. Ethan had gone to bed. Lauren was upstairs editing videos, probably writing captions about the magic of family. I looked at the empty wine glasses, the grease-stained dishes, and the crumbs scattered across my floor. Something twisted inside me, cold and sharp. When I finally lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. Helen's photo sat on the nightstand beside me, her smile soft in the dim light. "I miss when respect was simple," I whispered to the darkness. The next morning, Lauren came into the kitchen in her silk robe, holding her phone like it was a crown. "Richard, darling," she said, the sink's clogged again. "Could you fix it before my Zoom call? I didn't move." She frowned. "Richard, did you hear me?" I looked up from my coffee. "You have 2 hands. Use them." Her mouth fell open. "Excuse me." "You heard me." Her eyes widened, and for the first time, she didn't have a quick comeback. I could tell she wasn't used to being told no. Ethan came down a few minutes later, tension already thick in the air. "Dad, and what happened?" "Nothing," I said. "She just asked for something I don't owe her." Lauren scoffed. "Unbelievable. I was being nice. You love feeling useful, don't you?" That word useful cut deeper than any insult. For years I believed being useful kept me connected to my son, that helping kept me needed. I mistook servitude for belonging. That morning I realized the truth: I was useful, because it was convenient for them. Later that afternoon, she brought 2 of her influencer friends over again, claiming they needed to test a holiday menu. When they arrived, Lauren motioned at me as if I were part of the decor. "Richard, could you prepare that coffee cake you're famous for?" I looked her dead in the eye. "No." She blinked, laughing nervously. "What I said, no. I'm not your chef, your assistant, or your decoration. Make it yourself." Her smile froze. One of her friends awkwardly cleared her throat. Another murmured something about forgetting an appointment and hurried out. When they were gone, Lauren's facade cracked. "You embarrassed me," she hissed. "In front of my friends, I told the truth. I said, 'If that embarrasses you, maybe you're living wrong.'" She stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard the ornaments rattled on the tree. Ethan came home that evening to find the tension thick enough to cut. "Dad," he sighed, "you could have just helped her. It's Christmas." "I helped her for 5 years," I said quietly. "How many more Christmases do you want me to give away?" He looked away, guilt flickering across his face. "She just wants everything to be perfect." "No," I said. "She wants everything to look perfect." There's a difference. That night I sat at my desk and opened an old drawer. Inside was the small ledger I'd kept for years: notes, receipts, bank letters. I turned on the lamp and began flipping through them, tracing every small moment when I'd been pushed aside, every dollar spent under my name without my say. The patterns were clearer than ever. Lauren's need for perfection wasn't just emotional, it was financial. I remembered overhearing her on the phone once whispering to her sister about maxing out the card, and Ethan will never notice. I'd let it slide then, thinking it was none of my business. Now I realized it was all of my business. It was my house, my legacy, my family. The clock ticked softly. I took a pen and started writing dates, names, amounts, accounts to verify. I didn't know exactly where this would lead, but I knew one thing for sure: silence had protected the wrong people for too long. When I finished, I closed the ledger and leaned back in my chair. Snowflakes drifted against the window pane, catching the faint glow from the streetlights. Somewhere upstairs, Lauren was talking loudly on the phone again, her voice rising in false cheer. Ethan's voice followed, tired, placating. I turned off the lamp and sat in the dark, feeling something stir inside me. Not anger, but clarity. I wasn't the maid in this house. I wasn't the side character in her story. Tomorrow she'd walk into the kitchen again, all charm and manipulation, expecting the same obedience she'd enjoyed for years. But the quiet man she'd learned to dismiss had already disappeared. In his place was someone she'd never met, someone patient, calculating, and finally awake. Lauren burst into the kitchen the next morning, her phone already raised, recording. "Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Look who's making breakfast, Dad, Hall himself." I was standing by the counter buttering toast. Her camera caught my hands, my gray hair, the coffee mug beside me. Not my face. Never my face. I looked at the lens and smiled thinly. "You know, Lauren, I'm retired, not hired." She blinked, lowering the phone a little. "What's that supposed to mean? That it's not my job to cook for your followers?" I said, setting the knife down. Her mouth twisted into that performative laugh she used whenever she didn't know what to say. "You're so funny, Richard. Don't mind him, guys. He loves doing this." I wiped my hands on a towel, turned off the stove, and walked out of the frame. The sound of the burner clicking off was louder than her giggle. "Dad," she called after me, her tone half annoyed, half nervous. "Where are you going?" "For a walk," I said. "Before someone hands me another camera." By the time I got back, the kitchen looked like a storm had hit it. Flour on the counter, eggshells in the sink, and Lauren sitting at the table scrolling through her phone as if nothing had happened. "Oh, good," she said, not looking up. "Can you clean this up before Ethan gets home? I'm late for a live stream." I stared at her, taking in the chaos, the crumbs, the empty cartons. "Clean it yourself." She looked up sharply. "Excuse me, you made the mess. You clean it." Her jaw dropped. "Are you serious right now? As serious as the mortgage I still pay?" She stood up, eyes flashing. "You don't have to get nasty. I thought you enjoyed keeping busy." "Busy is fine," I said. "Being used is not." That shut her up for half a second. Then she muttered something under her breath and stomped out of the room. At lunch, she came back with 2 friends, both dressed like mannequins, all designer coats and glittering nails. "Ladies," she announced, "you're in for a treat. My father-in-law is making his famous chicken pot pie." I looked up from the newspaper. "No, he isn't." The 2 women laughed, thinking I was teasing. "Oh, come on," one said. "She talks about your cooking all the time." "She should talk about her own someday," I said. Lauren's smile froze. "Could you excuse us a second?" she said sweetly, pushing her friends toward the hallway. When they were gone, her voice dropped. "What are you doing? You're making me look bad. I'm not making you look like anything I said." "You're doing a fine job on your own." Her cheeks flushed. "They're my professional partners. Do you have any idea how hard I work to keep this image together?" "I do," I said, folding the paper. "That's the problem." "Richard, you're being cruel," she hissed. "You know I count on you for these things." I raised an eyebrow. "Count on me or exploit me." Before she could answer, one of her friends poked her head back in. "Everything okay?" Lauren forced a laugh. "Of course. Just a little family banter." I went upstairs, leaving her standing there, pretending everything was fine. That evening, Ethan came home and found her pacing the living room. "You wouldn't believe how your father talked to me," she began as soon as he hung up his coat. "He's losing it, Ethan. He's refusing to help. He embarrassed me in front of my colleagues." Ethan sighed, loosening his tie. "Lauren, maybe he just needs space. He's been on edge lately." "On edge," she snapped. "He's impossible. He's sabotaging everything I'm building." I heard them from the hallway, but I didn't step in. I wanted to hear what my son would say when no one was watching. "Look," Ethan said quietly. "He's old, okay? Maybe he just doesn't like how much things have changed." Lauren scoffed. "Changed? I'm trying to improve this house, to make it presentable." Before me, it looked like a museum. I walked in, then calm as ever. Better a museum than a circus. They both jumped. "Dad." Ethan started, but I raised a hand. "Don't worry, I'm not staying for dinner." Lauren glared at me. "Fine. Maybe we'll finally have some peace around here." "Peace," I said. "You wouldn't recognize it if it served you breakfast." I grabbed my coat and stepped outside. The air bit at my face, sharp and clean. Behind me, their voices blurred together in argument. I walked 2 blocks, letting the cold clear my thoughts. For years, I'd mistaken politeness for patience, restraint for peace. I used to tell myself that silence was strength. But silence had turned into permission. When I came home, the house was dark, except for the glow of her ring light in the dining room. She was filming again, voice syrupy sweet. Family is everything, she said into the camera, her eyes still red from crying. It's all about love, gratitude, and hard work. I turned off the light switch on the wall. Her face vanished from the screen. "Richard," she yelled, "what are you doing?" "Saving electricity," I said. The next morning, she pretended nothing had happened. She greeted me with forced cheer, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "Morning. We've got a rehearsal dinner tonight for some friends. I'll need your help setting up." I looked at her over my coffee mug. "You invited them?" "Of course they're bringing wine, but you'll handle the cooking. You know your roast always." "No." She blinked. "No what?" "No, I won't." The words landed heavy between us. Lauren laughed, brittle and sharp. "You're joking again." I put down my mug. "No, I'm not. You invited the guests. You serve them." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "That's ridiculous. You can't just refuse." "I can," I said evenly. And I just did. By the time Ethan got home, she was pacing the kitchen again. "He's completely unreasonable," she cried. "He refuses to help with the party." Ethan rubbed his face. "Dad, please. Can't you just keep the peace for one night, peace?" I said. "Son, do you even hear yourself? You keep using that word like it means obedience." Lauren slammed her hands on the counter. "He's ruining everything." "No," I said, looking her in the eye. "I'm fixing it. Just not the way you think." The guests arrived at 7. I stayed in my study reading, listening to the muffled clatter of dishes and forced laughter. I could imagine Lauren smiling too wide, pretending nothing was wrong, while her guests wondered why she kept running back and forth to the kitchen. At one point, I heard her hiss through gritted teeth, "Smile. Don't make me look bad." An hour later, someone knocked gently on my door. It was Ethan. "Dad," he said quietly, "could you just come out for a bit? It would mean a lot to her." I looked up at him. He looked tired, older than his years. "She needs to learn to stand without someone holding her up," I said. "Tonight's as good a time as any." He didn't argue. He just nodded and walked away. When the laughter downstairs finally faded, I went to the kitchen. Dirty plates piled high, wine spilled on the counter. Candles melted into puddles of wax. Lauren was gone. I stood there for a long time, letting the silence settle. Then I opened my drawer, pulled out the small black notebook, and wrote one line across the top of a new page. Enough. I looked at that single word until it stopped feeling like anger and started feeling like direction. Upstairs, a door slammed. Then another. I smiled to myself. Let her think I'd lost it. Let her think this was just another tantrum from the old man she thought she could control. The calm before a storm always looks like madness to those who never see it coming. I was pouring myself a cup of coffee the next morning when I heard her voice in the hallway, cheerful and fake, the kind of tone she reserved for people she wanted to impress. "Yes, Uncle Franklin, everything's going to be perfect," she said loudly, pacing past the kitchen doorway. "Richard's making his famous roast, and Ethan's handling the decorations this year. You'll love it here." I froze mid-pour. My famous roast, I hadn't cooked a thing in weeks, and I had no intention of making that woman's holiday perfect. She turned the corner, still talking, her laugh echoing down the hall. "Oh, you'll adore the house. It's just stunning this time of year. We're planning a full-course dinner for everyone. Don't worry, I've got it all covered." When she finally hung up, she spotted me standing there. "Oh, morning, Richard. Who was that?" I asked, keeping my voice even. She smiled like a child caught sneaking candy. "Just my Uncle Franklin. He and the family are so excited. They'll be here on the 23rd. "Isn't that wonderful?" 23rd, I repeated. "That's 3 days before Christmas." "Exactly. It gives us time to prepare the perfect dinner." I set down my cup slowly. "Did you just tell him I'd be cooking?" Her smile wavered. "Well, you make the best roast in the family." I was bragging a little. "Bragging," I echoed. "Or volunteering me without asking." She rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. You love cooking for family. It's your thing." "No, Lauren," I said. "It used to be my thing. Now it's just your convenience." She waved a hand dismissively. "You always take things so personally. Being treated like staff in my own home feels pretty personal," I said. She stopped, jaw tightening, then gave a brittle laugh. "Don't start, Richard. You'll ruin the mood." "The mood," I repeated. "Right." I turned away. but inside something was shifting again, cold, deliberate, inevitable. That afternoon, I heard her on a video call with her sister Chloe. Her voice carried clearly through the thin walls. If this Christmas goes well, Uncle Franklin might finally invest in Ethan's startup, she said, excitement trembling in her tone. He's been hinting at it for months. He just needs to see that we're responsible. The house, the dinner, everything has to look perfect. Chloe laughed. So you're basically using the house as your PR stage? Exactly, Lauren said. Richard's such a good prop. He makes us look grounded. People love that family man image. He's harmless, quiet, and old-fashioned. It's perfect branding. I stood in the hallway, every word slicing through me like glass. Harmless, quiet, prop. So that was my purpose in her story. The old man who smiled in the background while she built her empire of lies. That night I said nothing. She strutted around the kitchen giving orders to Ethan about centerpieces and color palettes while he nodded and muttered yes like a trained echo. Don't forget, she said brightly. We'll need 3 table setups for photos, 1 rustic, 1 modern, and 1 glam. I'll post them in separate reels. Ethan gave a tired smile. Whatever you say. I sat at the end of the counter sipping my tea. Out of curiosity, I asked, how much is this perfect Christmas going to cost? Lauren shot me a look. Why do you always ask about money? It's rude, because money keeps the lights on, I said. And last time I checked, the bill still has my name on it. She sniffed. Ethan makes good money. We're fine. Good, I said. Because it sounds like you're planning to impress more than just family. Her eyes flickered for a split second, just enough to confirm I was right. You have no idea what you're talking about, she said quickly. I usually do, I replied, standing up. I just let people believe I don't. That shut her up. Later that evening, I walked past the dining table and noticed a folder lying open among the shopping catalogs and wrapping paper. It was thick with a glossy cover, Franklin Investment Deck, Hall Family Ventures. I flipped it open. The first page showed a rendering of a modern office space followed by graphs, projections, and a neat bullet list of assets. Halfway down the page, I stopped. Primary collateral Hall residence. Estimated value, $1. 2M owned by Richard Hall, father-in-law and primary partner. I kept reading. The next page included photos of our house, my garden, even my workshop out back captioned as family estate assets. By the time I reached the section labeled Ownership Transfer Contingency, my hands had gone cold. She'd written out an entire pitch to make it look like our property was part of her and Ethan's portfolio. And I was listed as advisory support. The air in the room shifted. Outside, the snow pressed against the windows, silent and heavy. Inside, everything clicked into place. The fake charm, the endless social posts, the obsession with appearances. This wasn't about Christmas. It was about money. About power. I closed the folder carefully, set it back where I found it, and stood there for a long time. When Ethan came home, I was sitting in the living room, staring at the tree lights. Hey, Dad, he said tiredly. Everything okay? Fine, I said. Just admiring how fast things can change. He looked puzzled, but didn't ask. Lauren swept in behind him, kissing him on the cheek. Babe, Uncle Franklin just texted he's so excited. He said he's bringing the investment paperwork to review after Christmas dinner. Ethan grinned faintly. That's great, right? She glanced at me, maybe expecting approval. I smiled back, calm as ever. Oh, it's perfect. She relaxed. See? Even your dad's on board? Absolutely, I said. I wouldn't miss it for the world. That night, after they'd gone upstairs, I went into my study. The folder was still there, the edges crisp and new. I opened my laptop and typed an email to an old friend, Daniel Brooks, my former attorney. Subject: need to discuss property protection. Within minutes, he replied, Of course, Richard. Tomorrow morning at my office. We'll take care of it. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. It wasn't anger I felt anymore. It was something colder, cleaner. The kind of stillness that comes before a storm. The next morning I drove to Daniel's downtown office, a small brick building that smelled faintly of coffee and paperwork. He was waiting in the lobby, gray-haired, sharp-eyed. "What brings you back to my side of town?" he asked. "My daughter-in-law thinks my house belongs to her," I said. He chuckled. "That old story. I'd like to make sure it never becomes a real one." He nodded, flipping through his notepad. "You want to move it into a trust?" "Exactly. Full control, no third-party claims, no transfers without my consent." "Consider it done," he said. "I'll send the paperwork by tomorrow. You'll sleep better." "I already do," I said. When I got home that afternoon, Lauren was on another call, pacing through the living room. "Yes, Uncle Franklin, the house will be picture perfect. You'll see. Ethan's father even agreed to help with the dinner. He's all in now." She saw me standing there and smiled triumphantly. "See, I told him you'd come around." I returned her smile, measured and cool. "I did. And I'm making sure everything's ready." "Good," she said brightly. "You're finally on the same page?" "Not exactly," I murmured. That evening, while she scrolled through her phone, I went down to the basement, opened the small safe behind my old tool chest, and took out the house deed. I ran my fingers over the embossed paper, 3 decades of work, sweat, and sacrifice condensed into one document. Then I slid it into an envelope for Daniel. Lauren's laughter drifted down from upstairs, loud and hollow. I smiled to myself, sealing the envelope shut. She wanted a perfect Christmas. She was going to get one, just not the kind she planned. The next morning, I met Daniel at a small cafe near the courthouse. Snow still clung to the edges of his coat when he slid into the booth across from me. "You look like a man who's finally ready to draw a line," he said. "I should have drawn it 5 years ago," I replied. "But better late than never." He opened a leather folder, flipping through the documents. "So the Hall residence built, owned, and fully paid off by you. We'll establish a property trust under your name only. That means no one, your son, his wife, not even a relative, can sell, mortgage, or use it as collateral without your signature." "Perfect," I said. "Make it airtight." He smiled faintly. "That's what I do best." We talked for an hour, going over the legal details. By the time I left, my plan had shape, weight, and a trail of paper behind it. The first brick of my wall was laid. When I returned home, the house was empty except for the sound of Lauren's voice drifting from her office upstairs. I set the trust documents on my desk and logged into my online banking account. I hadn't checked it closely in months. My son handled most bills, and Lauren was in charge of shopping, which suddenly seemed like a terrible idea. The numbers didn't lie. There were charges from boutiques, spas, restaurants, and travel agencies. Thousands gone in small, steady withdrawals. Most of the purchases were under Ethan's joint account, but the transactions were clearly Lauren's designer stores, beauty brands, content creation tools. She'd even ordered equipment for her live streams, using Ethan's name. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the monitor. Every line of that bank statement told the same story. She wasn't just irresponsible. She was dangerous. I printed everything, statements, invoices, receipts, and slipped them into a folder. The hum of the printer filled the room, rhythmic and satisfying, like hammering nails into a coffin. At lunch, Ethan came home early. "Hey, Dad." "Everything okay?" "Fine," I said. "Just going through some finances." He froze. "Finances? Yes. The ones you've been too busy to look at." He frowned, defensive. "What's that supposed to mean?" I turned the laptop toward him. "It means your wife's been spending more than you earn." He stared at the screen, eyes scanning line after line. "This can't be right." "It's all there," I said. "Receipts don't lie." He rubbed his forehead. "Dad, She said some of these were business expenses, partnerships, brand stuff, Ethan. I interrupted. You're not running a business. You're running a daycare for her ego. He looked up sharply. That's not fair. Fair, I asked. You think she's being fair? You think it's fair to put my house on a proposal without my consent? His mouth opened, then shut. I didn't know about that. Of course you didn't. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. She tells you what makes you feel like a man and hides the rest. You're her cover story. He stood abruptly, shaking his head. You're wrong. I wish I were. He left the room without another word, the front door slamming behind him. I waited for the silence to return, then gathered the papers, slid them into an envelope, and labeled it simply Truth. That afternoon, I drove to the bank to make the rest of my arrangements. The manager, a friend from my working days, greeted me with a warm handshake. Richard Hall, he said. Haven't seen you since the retirement party. I've been busy keeping my sanity, I said. He laughed. How can I help? I need to separate my personal accounts from my son's household account. Immediately. And I'd like to open a new private account under the property trust name. He didn't ask questions, just nodded and got to work. We'll transfer everything today, he said. You'll be the only one with access. Good, I said. That's how it should have been from the start. By the time I got home, it was late afternoon. Lauren was sitting at the dining table surrounded by Christmas catalogs and her laptop. Her tone was unusually sweet when she saw me. Richard, perfect timing. I was just about to ask you about something important. Go ahead, I said, hanging up my coat. I need you to polish the silverware before Friday, she said brightly. Uncle Franklin loves a good shine. I smiled faintly. For the family or the investors? Her expression faltered. What? Never mind. I walked past her toward my study. You've been acting strange lately, she called after me. Is something going on? Not at all, I said without turning. Everything's finally in order. That night I went through the folder one more time. The receipts, the proposal deck, the statements, they told the whole story. I typed out an email to Franklin, her wealthy uncle in Florida. Dear Mr. Franklin, as the homeowner, I wanted to clarify a few details before your upcoming visit. There may be some confusion regarding property ownership and investment proposals. I believe transparency is best for family harmony. Please let me know if you'd like to discuss matters in person. Warm regards, Richard Hall. Before hitting send, I attached a few carefully selected screenshots, just enough to raise questions, not accusations. Then I added one last line. Sometimes appearances can be deceiving. I sent the email and shut the laptop. Downstairs, Lauren was humming to herself, blissfully unaware that her empire was already cracking. The next morning, Daniel called. The trust paperwork's done, he said. I filed it last night. You're officially untouchable. Music to my ears, I replied. He laughed. You always were the patient kind, Richard. The kind that waits for the right moment to strike. Patience isn't weakness, I said. It's aim. By noon, the house was filled with activity again, Lauren, decorating, Ethan half-heartedly helping. She called me from the living room. Richard, can you help untangle these lights? They're a mess. No, I said. She turned surprised. What? I said, no. Why not? It's just lights. I'm done fixing other people's messes. She stared at me, stunned. Are you angry with me? I met her eyes. No, Lauren. Anger's a waste of energy. I'm just getting organized. She frowned, confused, but I'd already turned back to my work. That evening, after everyone went to bed, I sat by the window watching the snow fall. My email inbox pinged a new message from Franklin. Mr. Hall, thank you for reaching out. I appreciate your honesty. Let's discuss this in person when we arrive. We'll be there early on the 23rd. Looking forward to meeting you. Perfect. I poured myself a drink, the first I'd had in months. The burn was smooth, deliberate, satisfying. Upstairs, Lauren's laughter echoed faintly as she talked on the phone. Probably another lie, another performance. I smiled to myself and looked out at the quiet street. You wanted a perfect Christmas, I murmured. You're going to get one. Just not the way you think. I switched off the light, letting the house sink into darkness. The only glow left came from the Christmas tree in the corner, blinking mechanically green-red like the pulse of a house that didn't yet know its heart was about to stop beating. Snow fell steadily through the night, blanketing the neighborhood in white silence. By morning, the whole street shimmered under the pale light of December. Inside, the air smelled of pine and tension. Lauren was already pacing the kitchen, phone in hand, barking into her Bluetooth earpiece. Yes, Aunt Marie, of course there'll be enough food for everyone. Richard's already planning the menu. He loves hosting. She laughed too loudly, the sound brittle as glass. You'll see, it's going to be the best Christmas ever. She ended the call and turned to me, her fake cheers snapping off like a switch. We need to talk. I looked up from my coffee. Do we? Yes, she snapped. My family is expecting a proper holiday dinner. Franklin's flying and Aunt Marie is bringing the kids, and they're all counting on you to make it happen. I set my mug down. I didn't agree to that. You're being selfish, she said. You know they all respect you. You can't just sit around while I handle everything. That's not fair. Fair, I said quietly. Fair would have been asking before you volunteered me. She crossed her arms. Don't twist this around. You're part of this family. You should be grateful people still look up to you. I stared at her for a moment, then stood. Grateful, I repeated. For being treated like an unpaid employee in my own home. Her eyes widened. That's not what this is. That's exactly what this is. I cut in. 5 years of cooking, cleaning, smiling for your little performances. I've paid for your events, your props, your perfect image. You've taken enough. Richard, she said, her voice rising, I've worked hard to make this family look successful. Don't ruin it because you're bitter. I felt something settle inside me. Cold, steady. Lauren, I said, I don't have to ruin anything. You've done a fine job of that yourself. She opened her mouth, but I was already walking away. By mid-morning, Ethan came home from work holding a cup of coffee like a peace offering. Dad, he started carefully. Lauren told me about the argument. She's stressed. You know how she gets before these big family things. She's stressed because she's lying to them, I said. And to you. He frowned. What are you talking about? I handed him the printed folder, the one labeled Truth. He hesitated, then opened it. As his eyes scanned the bank statements, the receipts, the proposal, with my house listed as collateral, the color drained from his face. What is this? He whispered. The life your wife's been living, I said. On your name, on my home, on lies. He shook his head. She wouldn't, she couldn't. She did, I said flatly. You've been her front. She needed your signature, my reputation, and Franklin's money. Everything else was decoration. He looked up dazed. I need to talk to her. You should, I said. But be prepared for the performance. When Lauren came home later that afternoon, she found Ethan waiting in the living room, the folder open on the coffee table. What's this? She asked, feigning confusion. Explain it, Ethan said quietly. Now. She picked up one of the papers, squinting at it like she'd never seen it before. Oh, that. It's just part of the business proposal I made for Franklin. You know that. Why is Dad's house listed as collateral? He demanded. She froze, eyes flicking between us. It's just a placeholder. Everyone does that in proposals. It looks more credible. Ethan's voice hardened. You lied to my uncle about owning this place. You told him we had joint property. It was harmless, she protested. It's not like he'd check, but he will, I said from the armchair. And when he does, you'll have a lot to explain. She spun toward me. You showed him, didn't you? I sent him the truth, I said. That's all. You sabotaged me, she screamed. Do you know what you've done? I've stopped you from dragging this family further into debt and disgrace, I said. She looked like she might explode. You think you're some kind of hero? You've always hated me. You can't stand that. I make this family better, I said softly. You've hollowed it out and painted the shell gold. Her face went pale, then red. Ethan, are you seriously taking his side? He didn't answer. Say something, she demanded. He finally looked at her, his voice low. He's right, Lauren. She recoiled like he'd slapped her. Unbelievable, she hissed. You're both pathetic. She stormed upstairs, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Ethan sank into the couch, rubbing his eyes. Dad, I don't even know what to say. Then don't, I said. Just think. He nodded slowly, defeated. Franklin's coming in 3 days. What do we even tell him? The truth, I said. Always the truth. That night, the house was eerily quiet. Lauren didn't come down for dinner. Ethan ate silently, lost in thought. I cleaned the dishes myself, not out of habit, but because the rhythm calmed me. When the kitchen was spotless, I poured myself a small glass of whiskey and sat by the window. The snow outside reflected the faint glow of the streetlights, soft and endless. Upstairs, I heard Lauren moving around fast, anxious, like she was packing or pacing. Then her voice, low but sharp, carried through the vents. She's going to ruin everything, she muttered into her phone. No, listen, Franklin can't know about this. I'll fix it before he gets here. I'll handle Richard. Handle me. I took another sip of whiskey, savoring the irony. The next morning, she acted as though nothing had happened. She hummed Christmas carols, arranged decorations, and even brought me coffee. Truce, she asked sweetly, setting the cup beside me. I looked at it, then at her. You're persistent, I'll give you that. She smiled. We're family. We should stick together. I raised an eyebrow. You mean until your uncle signs the check? Her smile twitched. You're cruel sometimes, Richard. I just want things to be peaceful again. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, I said. It's the absence of lies. Her eyes flickered, but she kept her voice smooth. Then maybe you should start telling fewer of your own. I met her gaze steadily. I've told no lies. I just stopped covering yours. Her charm cracked for a moment, just long enough for me to see the fury underneath. Then she turned and walked away. When Ethan came downstairs later, I handed him a sealed envelope. What's this? He asked. Proof that the house is under trust. No one can touch it now, not her, not even you. He looked at the envelope as if it were a confession. Dad, you didn't have to. Yes, I did, I said. I built this place for your mother. It won't become collateral for someone else's ambition. He nodded, eyes glistening. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, I said softly. Just learn. That night I received another email from Franklin. We'll be arriving early in the morning on the 23rd. Looking forward to finally meeting you, Richard. Perfect timing. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes as the house creaked around me. Upstairs, Lauren's light footsteps moved back and forth, restless plotting. She still thought she could outsmart me, that she could smooth things over before the truth reached her family. But she didn't realize the truth was already on its way, hand-delivered by the very people she'd tried to impress. And when it arrived, she'd finally understand what happens when you build your life on lies and underestimate the quiet man who stopped cleaning up after them. The alarm went off at 6 in the morning. I didn't hit snooze. I just sat there for a moment staring at the ceiling, letting the sound fade into the quiet of the house. The air was cold sharp with that kind of stillness you only get in winter. A perfect morning to disappear. Downstairs, the kitchen was spotless. I'd cleaned it myself the night before, wiped every counter, emptied the fridge, packed away. The good silverware lay locked the china cabinet. Everything was in order, just not the way Lauren imagined. I made myself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, watching the steam rise. My suitcase sat by the back door, zipped and ready. The Christmas lights blinked weakly through the window, a hollow performance for a holiday that didn't mean anything anymore. 5 years of doing the same routine. Wake up, cook breakfast, fix what's broken, listen to her complaints about how nothing ever feels perfect. I'd built this house with my hands, but somehow it stopped being mine the moment she stepped inside. I looked around the kitchen and felt nothing. No anger, no regret, just relief. The note sat on the counter, folded neatly beside the spare house keys. Have decided to leave early for my trip. The house is in your hands. Enjoy your perfect Christmas. That was all it said. I didn't need to explain. People like Lauren never listen to explanations. Anyway, they just hear inconveniences. I took one last look at the living room. The tree stood half decorated, the garlands uneven. She'd probably planned to film a transformation reveal later that day. Good. Let her explain to 25 guests why the miracle of Christmas didn't come with a maid. As I set the mug in the sink, I caught my reflection in the window. 67 years old. A few wrinkles, deeper hair thinner, eyes sharper. I still recognized the man Helen fell in love with, the one who built things, solved problems, fixed what others broke. Only this time, the thing that needed fixing was me. I zipped my coat, picked up the suitcase, and stepped outside. The cold hit instantly, biting through the wool. I stood there for a moment, looking back at the house. The snow was falling again, light and quiet, covering the driveway like a blank page. "Goodbye, old friend," I murmured, then walked to the waiting taxi at the curb. The driver, a young man with a scruffy beard and kind eyes, smiled as he loaded my bag. "Heading out early for the holidays, something like that," I said. He laughed. "Smart man, less traffic." I settled into the back seat, watching as the house grew smaller through the window. I didn't wave. I didn't look back again. Halfway down the street, my phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "Dad, where are you?" I typed slowly. "On vacation. You'll be fine. Merry Christmas." Then I switched the phone to silent. The drive took about an hour. The hotel sat on a quiet bluff overlooking the ocean, modern, warm, expensive, and worth every penny. When I checked in, the receptionist smiled politely. 2 weeks, Mr. Hall." "Yes," I said. "Ocean view, please." She handed me the key card. "Welcome to the Seaview Resort. Breakfast is from 7 to 10. Would you like us to notify anyone of your stay?" "No," I said. "This is a private holiday." Room 302 smelled like cedar and salt air. The balcony looked straight out to the gray-blue horizon, waves curling in lazy rhythm against the shore. I unpacked only what I needed: 2 shirts, a pair of jeans, my Razor Helen's old watch. Everything else could stay zipped away. At 9:30, I ordered breakfast, eggs, bacon, black coffee, and something I hadn't had in years, peace. I ate slowly, reading the paper while sunlight filtered through the curtains. Around 10, my phone buzzed again. 4 missed calls from Ethan, 6 from Lauren. Dozens of messages piling up like snowdrifts. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked my email. A new message from Franklin was waiting. "Mr. Hall, after reviewing the documents you sent, my family and I have decided to arrive a day earlier than planned. We'd like to discuss this matter before Christmas Eve. Would you be available on the morning of the 23rd? A slow smile spread across my face. Perfect timing. Of course, Franklin, I typed back, but I must inform you that I'll be leaving town that same day. My son and daughter-in-law will be delighted to host you in my absence. Send. I leaned back, satisfied. The dominoes were lined up. All I had to do now was watch them fall. Around noon, room service delivered lunch, lobster bisque, warm bread, a glass of white wine. I turned on the TV and flipped through channels until I landed on a local news report about the Christmas rush at grocery stores. People fighting over turkeys, arguing about cranberries. It made me chuckle. Lauren probably thought grocery shopping was beneath her. I wondered how she'd react when she realized there was no food, no catering, no help, no plan. By late afternoon, I took a walk down to the shore. The air smelled of salt and pine. Couples strolled hand in hand, children built lopsided snowmen near the dunes. For a brief moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, freedom. I sat on a driftwood log and watched the tide roll in. Helen used to love the ocean. She said the waves reminded her of forgiveness, how everything, no matter how messy, eventually smooths out. Maybe she was right. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen, a new voicemail from Ethan. Dad, please pick up. Lauren's freaking out. She said you left a note. The fridge is empty. The pantry's empty. Why would you do that? 25 people are arriving in 2 days. Please call me back. Then another voicemail followed Lauren's voice, this time high, frantic. Richard, this isn't funny. I have guests coming from out of state. You can't just vanish. Be a grown-up and come home right now. I laughed out loud, the sound carried away by the wind. No, Lauren, I said to the sea. It's your turn to grow up. That evening, I sat on the balcony, sipping whiskey as the sky darkened. The resort's Christmas lights glowed gold against the falling snow. Below, a pianist played something soft and slow in the lounge. I opened my laptop again, checking my inbox. Another message had arrived from Daniel, my lawyer. All filings complete. Trust registered. Assets secured. You're fully protected. Good. Everything was falling into place. Before bed, I wrote a short note in my journal, December 21st. The house is quiet without me, but I imagine it's much louder inside theirs. The lies are catching up. Tomorrow they'll start to understand what respect costs when it's been taken for granted. I closed the book, turned off the lamp, and lay back against the pillows. The faint hum of the heater and the distant crash of the waves filled the room. For the first time in half a decade, I felt light, like someone who'd finally stepped out of a cage he built himself. I thought of Helen again, her laugh, her calm way of handling storms. You'd be proud of me, I murmured into the dark. Outside, the snow kept falling. The world was clean again, unspoiled, silent. And as I drifted to sleep, I knew somewhere miles away, Lauren was waking up to chaos, and I didn't need to lift a finger to make it happen. The first call came at 8:03 a.m. I was sitting on the balcony, coffee in hand, watching the gray horizon stretch endlessly across the sea. The sky looked heavy with snow, but the ocean didn't care. It kept breathing in slow, quiet waves. My phone vibrated against the table. Ethan. I let it ring. 30 seconds later, it rang again, then again. Finally, a voicemail notification popped up. I waited until it stopped blinking before pressing play. Dad? Ethan's voice was breathless, frantic. Lauren's losing it. You left a note. What does this mean? The fridge is empty. The pantry's empty. Why would you take everything? We have guests coming in less than 2 days. Call me back, please. This isn't funny. I smiled faintly. It's not supposed to be, I murmured, taking another sip of coffee. The phone buzzed again this time, showing Lauren's name. I let it ring too. I could imagine her pacing the kitchen, her perfect hair a mess, mascara smeared from crying or fury. Maybe both. When the call finally went to voicemail, her voice exploded through the speaker. Richard, how dare you do this? You're ruining Christmas. My family's on their way and there's nothing in this house. Where's the turkey, the decorations, the everything? You're sick, you know that. You're just jealous because we're happy." She paused, breathing hard, then added in a trembling whisper, "Please just tell me where you are. I'll make it right. I'll fix it." I set the phone down, ignoring her plea. Instead, I opened my laptop and refreshed my inbox. A new message had arrived. Franklin Howard, subject line, arriving tomorrow morning. Looking forward to our conversation. Perfect. I typed back quickly, "Dear Franklin, thank you for confirming. I'll be leaving for my trip that same day, but Ethan and Lauren will be happy to host you. Best regards, Richard Hall." Then I closed the laptop, leaned back, and listened to the waves. Across town, I imagined the chaos unfolding, like clockwork. Lauren would have started her morning with her daily checklist. Grocery delivery canceled. Housekeeping service canceled. Decorations locked in the spare room. Silverware gone. I pictured her standing in front of the open refrigerator, staring at the empty shelves where she expected pre-marinated roasts and trays of vegetables. The gleaming, hollow look of someone realizing too late that the world doesn't run on autopilot. The image made me chuckle. At 9:15, the phone rang again. "Ethan." I answered this time. "Dad, thank God. What's going on?" "Why did you leave, morning sun?" I said calmly. "Sounds like a busy day." "Dad, don't do this. You can't just disappear right before the holidays." "Sure I can." I left a note. I read it. "What does it mean? Enjoy your perfect Christmas. Why would you empty the fridge? Why would you?" "Because it's your turn," I said. "Turn for what?" "To do the work," I said simply. "To cook, clean, plan, host. You wanted to impress the family. Now you can." "Dad, this isn't fair." "It's exactly fair," I said. "For 5 years, you both treated me like help. This time help took a vacation. Lauren's having a panic attack," he snapped. "She doesn't know what to do. I'm sure she'll figure it out," I said, and ended the call. A laugh slipped out before I could stop it. Not cruel, just free. Around noon, I ordered lunch from room service. Lobster thermidor, a side of salad, and a bottle of mineral water. While I ate, I imagined the sounds at my house cupboard, slamming drawers opening, Lauren shouting Ethan's name like a broken record. She probably called the grocery store next, demanding emergency catering. They'd tell her the account was frozen. Then she'd call the cleaning service, who'd politely inform her their contract was canceled per the homeowner's request. The homeowner. That was me. My phone buzzed again. 5 more missed calls, then a text message, "Lauren. Richard, please. I can't do this. They'll be here tomorrow. Just tell me what to do. Please." Then another, "Ethan, Dad, she's losing it. If you won't come back, at least tell me how to handle 25 people showing up to nothing." I replied to that one. "You start by growing up. The rest will follow." 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. I sighed, ready to ignore it, until I saw the name. "Franklin Howard." I answered. "Good afternoon, Franklin." "Mr. Hall," he said, polite but firm. "I hope I'm not intruding. I wanted to confirm tomorrow morning's visit. We'll arrive around 8. I'd also appreciate a short chat before everyone else arrives." "Of course," I said. "Though I should warn you I'll be leaving shortly after." He chuckled. "Understood. I have a feeling that'll make our timing even more interesting." Indeed it will. When the call ended, I leaned back, feeling the weight of inevitability settling in. Lauren's empire of illusion was about to collapse under its own glitter. That evening, as I watched the sunset spill gold over the water, I finally listened to the last voicemail Lauren had left. "Richard, please? I know you're angry, but this isn't you. You don't want to ruin Christmas. You're not vindictive like that. Just come home, we'll talk." Her voice cracked at the end. I almost felt pity. Almost. But pity wasn't respect, and respect was the only thing I wanted back. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and toasted the horizon. "Here's to consequences," I whispered. The next morning I woke early. Sunlight glinted through the frost on the balcony rail. My phone was buzzing again, Ethan. I hit speaker and let it play as I packed my suitcase. "Dad, please pick up. It's chaos here. Lauren's crying the oven doesn't work. We can't find the china or the decorations. The grocery store's closed early for the holidays. What are we supposed to do?" Franklin's flight landed early. I zipped my bag shut. "You'll figure it out," I said quietly to no one in particular. At exactly 8 o'clock, as I checked out of the hotel, my phone vibrated again. This time I answered. Ethan's voice was trembling. "Dad, please. Franklin's here. He's asking for you. Lauren told him you were just out running errands, but he's starting to suspect something." "Tell him the truth," I said. "What truth? That you invited 25 people to someone else's house without permission and the owner decided to go on vacation?" "Dad, you're making us look terrible." "No," I said calmly. "You did that yourself." In the background, I could hear voices muffled shouting, someone demanding explanations. Then a deeper voice, Franklin's. "Lauren, where is he? Where's Richard?" Ethan whispered, "Dad, please, just talk to him. Fix this." I smiled. "Son, for 5 years you called me only when you needed me to fix things. Today I'm teaching you the beauty of leaving them broken." I hung up and turned off the phone. Outside, the taxi was waiting. I climbed in, gave the driver my next destination, a small inn in the countryside far from the city noise, and leaned back. The snow started again, thick and soft, swirling around the car as we drove away. By noon, the messages started pouring in. "Lauren. They're here. Richard. Do you know what you've done? Franklin's furious, Ethan. Please, Dad. He's demanding explanations. He wants to see those bank statements you sent him, unknown number. This is Franklin Howard. I think it's time we spoke man to man." I let them all sit unread, while the countryside passed by outside the window. As the car climbed the hill toward the inn, I caught one last glimpse of the ocean far below, glittering faintly under the winter sun. For the first time in years, I didn't feel tired. Let them panic. Let them scramble. Christmas chaos had finally come to the right people. By the time the sun rose on December 23rd, my phone was already vibrating non-stop on the nightstand. I didn't need to look to know who it was. The show had started. I made myself a slow breakfast, black coffee, buttered toast, scrambled eggs, and watched the snow drift past the window of the countryside inn. The silence here was different. It wasn't lonely. It was earned. When I finally opened the phone, there were 33 missed calls. 22 from Ethan, 9 from Lauren, 2 from a number I didn't recognize. I scrolled through the messages until I found one that made me smile. "Franklin, Mr. Hall, my family and I just arrived at your home. I'd like to speak with you about some documents you sent earlier this week." I typed back, "Good morning, Franklin. Unfortunately, I'm traveling and won't be home. But please make yourself comfortable. Ethan and Lauren are excellent hosts." I put the phone down and waited. Less than an hour later, it buzzed again. Ethan this time, voice shaking. "Dad, you have to come back. Franklin's here and he's asking questions. He has your emails, those bank statements. Lauren's freaking out." "What did you do?" "Nothing," I said. "I told the truth. You could have warned us." "I did." I said, "For 5 years." He started to say something else, but I hung up before he could find the words. I leaned back in my chair, imagining the scene unfolding exactly as I had planned. Lauren answering the door in her designer robe, her fake smile plastered on tight, her voice too high-pitched as she said, "Uncle Franklin? What a surprise. We weren't expecting you so early." And Franklin, calm, firm, holding a folder in his hand. "Oh, I think you were." By 10 o'clock, another message came through, this time from Franklin himself. Franklin, Mr. Hall. Mr. Hall, I respect your privacy, but I need clarification on some matters. Is it true that your daughter-in-law used your home as collateral for a business proposal? I typed slowly. Yes, Franklin. Without my knowledge or consent. Seconds later, another message arrived. Franklin. That's concerning. We'll be speaking to her immediately. Thank you for your honesty. I set the phone aside and smiled into my coffee. The dominoes were falling just as they were meant to. At 10:15, Lauren's name flashed on my screen. This time I answered. Richard, her voice was shrill, desperate. You ruined everything. Franklin's here with papers. He's saying you told him I forged documents. What's wrong with you? Did you? I asked calmly. She stammered. That's not the point. It's exactly the point, I said. You've embarrassed me in front of my entire family. They think I'm a liar. You are, I said, then ended the call. I poured myself another cup of coffee, enjoying the silence before the next storm. Half an hour later, the phone rang again. Franklin this time. His voice was even, but I could hear the undercurrent of restrained anger. Mr. Hall, I wanted to speak to you directly. I'm at your house now, and things here are chaotic. I imagine so, I said. Your daughter-in-law is denying everything, but I've seen the statements. The credit cards, the loans, the proposal. It's clear she's been less than honest. You were right to reach out. I wasn't looking for validation, I said. I just thought the truth deserved a seat at the table. He sighed. You're a wise man. I only wish I'd known sooner. She told us for years that she and Ethan were financially stable, that you were helping expand his business. She told a lot of stories, I said. Indeed, he muttered. My sister's furious. My wife is heartbroken. We all trusted her. Now you know better. I do, and I assure you she'll face the consequences. Be kind, I said after a pause, but firm. She's needed both for a long time. He exhaled a low sound of disbelief. You have my respect, Mr. Hall. You've handled this with remarkable grace. Grace, I repeated, smiling faintly. That's one word for it. From there, the updates came in waves. A message from Ethan, Dad. You have no idea what's happening. Franklin just confronted her in front of everyone. She's screaming, crying, saying you made everything up. People are leaving. Aunt Marie called her a disgrace. Another from Franklin half an hour later. You were right about her debt. She's been using Ethan's name for years. We're discussing legal options. And finally, one from Valerie, Lauren's sister. I can't believe what she's done. Thank you for warning us. We'll make sure she takes responsibility. I sat there reading each message in turn, the soft hum of satisfaction building inside me, like a slow-burning fire. Not revenge, just balance restored. At noon, the phone rang again. Ethan. I answered this time. His voice was hoarse, raw. Dad, it's bad. She's completely broken down. Franklin's canceled his offer to invest in my company. They're calling in her loans. Her whole family's furious. What did you want from this? To destroy her, no, I said quietly. To stop her. She's my wife, he said. I can't just watch this happen. You can, I said, and you should, because for 5 years I watched her destroy you. He went silent. She made you small, I continued. Turned you into a man who apologized for her mistakes. You don't have to do that anymore. He didn't speak for a long time. Then softly, what do I do now? You start over, I said. And you start by remembering who you were before she convinced you that peace meant silence. Around 2 in the afternoon, another message arrived, this one from Franklin again. Franklin, for what it's worth, we've decided to call off the Christmas dinner. Too much damage has been done. But if you ever find yourself in Florida, you have a place at our table. A real one." I replied simply, "Thank you, Franklin. Merry Christmas." The rest of the day passed in quiet satisfaction. I took a walk through the snowy fields behind the inn, the air sharp and bright. The trees looked like they'd been dipped in frost, their branches glittering under the weak sun. When I came back to my room, the phone was flashing again, another voicemail from Lauren. "Richard," her voice cracked, almost unrecognizable now. "I don't know what to do. They all hate me. They said I lied to them. You've destroyed my life. Are you happy now?" There was a long silence before she whispered, "Please, just come back. Fix this." I deleted the message. Some things weren't meant to be fixed. That evening I sat by the fireplace in the inn's lounge, a small drink in my hand. The soft hum of conversation around me was a comfort I hadn't felt in years. Outside, the snow had started again, thick and endless. I imagined the house, the one she called hers, filled with stunned silence. Relatives packing their bags, Franklin's voice calm, but cutting, Ethan sitting alone, realizing that sometimes the only way to save a family is to let it fall apart first. I raised my glass toward the window. "To the truth," I murmured. The flames crackled in response, and for the first time since Helen died, I felt something close to peace. The knock on my hotel room door came just after sunrise. For a split second I thought it might be room service, but when I opened the door, a courier in a thick winter coat handed me an envelope. My name was written across it in tidy, precise handwriting. "Delivery for Mr. Hall," the man said. I tipped him and closed the door, tearing the seal carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No letterhead, no greeting. "She's fallen apart. Franklin has called off everything. I don't know what to do. Ethan." I folded the note, slipped it into my jacket pocket, and looked out at the frozen sea below. The world looked calm, indifferent, as if chaos didn't exist anywhere beyond the horizon. By the time I finished breakfast, my phone was buzzing again. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, but this time I answered. "Dad." His voice sounded wrecked, hoarse. "Please, come home. I told you I was on vacation. There's no Christmas, Dad. Everyone left. Franklin said he'd never trust us again. Lauren hasn't stopped crying since last night." "She'll survive," I said. "She's not eating, not speaking, she just sits there. I think she's in shock. Shock has a way of showing you who you really are," I said quietly. "Dad," he whispered, "what did you do?" "The truth," I said, then hung up. By midday, I was on the road. The snow was thick, the world outside my car nothing but white and gray. I didn't hurry. I'd already won, and victory didn't need to rush. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked smaller than I remembered. The wreath on the front door hung crooked, the lights half burnt out. The once perfect illusion had finally cracked. Inside, the air smelled of burnt candles and cold takeout. The tablecloth was stained plates piled in the sink, and the tree leaned slightly to one side, like it had given up trying to stand proud. Ethan was sitting on the couch, face pale, eyes hollow. "Dad," he said, standing too fast. "You came back. I told you I would," I said. Upstairs, I heard a faint sound, muffled crying. "She hasn't left the bedroom since last night," Ethan said. "Franklin tore into her. The whole family did. They called her a liar to her face. She tried to explain, but there's no explaining what she did." He rubbed the back of his neck, guilt etched deep into every line. "I should have stopped her. I should have seen what was happening." "You couldn't," I said. "You were too busy trying to keep peace in a war," she started. He looked at me, eyes wet. "I just wanted everyone to get along." "That's how weak men lose their homes," I said. He flinched, but didn't argue. "Where is she?" I asked. "Upstairs," he said. "But maybe you should give her time." "I've given her 5 years," I said, and climbed the stairs. The bedroom door was half open. Lauren sat on the edge of the bed, hair tangled, makeup streaked down her face. The confident woman who once strutted through this house like she owned it was gone. When she saw me, she stood up too quickly, her knees trembling. "You came back," she whispered. "I did." Her eyes darted toward the window, then back to me. "You destroyed me." "No," I said. "You did that yourself." She took a shaky breath, voice quivering. "You embarrassed me in front of my family. You turned them against me. You made me look like a criminal. You lied. You forged documents. You used my name, my home, and my son's credit. If you're worried about how you look, maybe start there." Tears filled her eyes, but she still tried to smile, desperate for the control she used to have. "You think this makes you the hero you're not. You're cruel, Richard." "I'm realistic," I said. "And realism is what you've avoided all your life." She stepped closer, voice rising. "You've taken everything from me." "No," I said. "I took back what was mine." For a moment, the only sound was her ragged breathing. Then, almost childlike, she whispered, "What am I supposed to do now?" "Learn," I said simply. "You've spent years pretending. Maybe now you'll learn what it means to live without pretending." Her knees buckled slightly. She sank back onto the bed, head in her hands. "I just wanted to make things perfect," she whispered. "They were perfect," I said softly, "before you started calling them yours." When I went back downstairs, Ethan was waiting at the foot of the stairs. "How bad is she?" "Broken," I said. "But she'll survive. People like her always do." He nodded slowly. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have listened to you." I sat down across from him. "You were trying to be a good husband. There's no shame in that. But next time, be a man first." He looked up. "What do you mean? Don't confuse peace with surrender," I said. "Don't let love make you blind to respect." He nodded again, eyes red. "What happens now?" I took the envelope from my coat pocket and slid it across the table. "Now," I said, "we start rebuilding without her running the show." He opened it. Inside was a copy of the trust agreement. His eyes widened as he read. You locked the house under your name?" "Under the Hall Family Trust," I said. "You'll inherit it when I'm gone. But until then, no one touches it. Not a bank, not a business, not a spouse." He stared at me. "You thought of everything." "I had 5 years to," I said. For a long moment we sat in silence, listening to the faint hum of the heater. Then Ethan said quietly, "Franklin wants to talk to you. He said he owes you an apology." "He already gave it," I said. "By seeing the truth." Ethan nodded, then his shoulders slumped. "Dad, I don't know if I can stay married to her after this." "That's between you and your conscience," I said. "But if you stay, make sure it's out of love, not guilt." He exhaled the sound, shaky but lighter somehow. "Thank you, Dad. For everything. You don't have to thank me," I said. "Just don't repeat me." That night the house was silent again. The guests were gone. The lights outside flickered against the snow, their glow faint but steady. I poured myself a drink and sat in my old chair by the window. The tree still stood in the corner, half-decorated, garish in its imperfection. Ethan had gone to bed early. Upstairs, Lauren's door stayed shut. I didn't care if she cried or packed or prayed. The storm had passed, and what remained wasn't destruction. It was clarity. I raised my glass toward the reflection in the window. Helen's photo sat on the mantel, her smile as calm as ever. "You'd laugh if you saw this," I said quietly. Took me long enough to finally speak up. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and endless. I leaned back, the warmth of the whiskey settling in my chest. Everything that needed to break had finally broken. And for the first time in years, the silence in my home wasn't heavy. It was clean. The taxi stopped at the end of the driveway, tires crunching through thin ice. I stepped out slowly, the wind cutting across my face sharp and clean. The air smelled faintly of pine and cold smoke, just like every winter before Helen died. But this morning felt different. It was Christmas Eve, and for the first time in years, I was walking back into my own house as the man who owned it. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The house was quiet. No Christmas music, no fake laughter, no perfume thickening the air. Just silence and the faint hum of the heater. I left my coat on the rack and looked around. The living room was a battlefield of glitter-broken ornaments and empty boxes. The grand celebration Lauren had promised her family had ended in surrender. From the kitchen, I heard a chair scrape the floor. Dad Ethan's voice was tired, uncertain. I turned. My son stood there in a wrinkled shirt, eyes red, hair uncombed. "You came back. I always said I would," I said. He managed a small smile, half relieved, half ashamed. "It's been a mess here." "I can see that." I stepped past him, taking in the wreckage, wine stains on the counter, a broken champagne glass on the floor, a cold, half-eaten pizza sitting where a roast dinner should have been. "Looks like your perfect Christmas came early." He didn't argue. "She's upstairs," he said quietly. "She hasn't said much since Franklin left." I nodded. "Then let's get this over with." When I climbed the stairs, the house creaked beneath my steps. Every sound echoed. At the top, the door to the master bedroom was open. Lauren sat by the window, staring out at the snow. Her reflection in the glass was pale, almost ghostly. She turned when she heard me. "Richard." Her voice was low, hollow. "You came back." "I live here," I said simply. "I thought—" She trailed off, eyes darting to the suitcase by the door. "You left for good?" "I did." Until there was nothing left to run from. She looked away again. "You win. This wasn't a competition." "Of course it was," she said bitterly. "Everything with you is. You waited for me to fail." "No," I said. "I waited for you to stop pretending." She let out a short, humorless laugh. "Well, here it is. The failure you wanted." "Not what I wanted," I said, walking toward her. "Just what you built." Her jaw tightened. "You humiliated me. You turned my family against me. I showed them what was already true." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't blink them away. "They think I'm a liar." "They don't think it," I said quietly. "They know it." She stood abruptly, her voice rising. "You could have fixed this. You could have said something, anything to make it better. But you wanted me destroyed. I wanted respect," I said. "You took that from me every single day. You walked into my kitchen and treated me like the help." "I treated you like family," she shouted. "You treated me like a tool," I snapped. "A prop for your little empire of lies." But here's the thing about props, Lauren. They're silent until they break. She turned away, shoulders trembling. For the first time, she didn't have an answer. "I'm not here to gloat," I said after a moment. "I'm here to make things clear. The house stays mine. The trust is sealed. You can stay for now, but only by my permission." She spun around. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious in my life," I said. "No more walking in and out as you please. No more using my name for your projects. If you want to visit, you ask. If you want to stay, you contribute." She shook her head slowly. "You sound like a stranger. I sound like a man who finally stopped apologizing for existing." The silence stretched between us, heavy and brittle. Downstairs, I heard the front door open and close. Ethan's voice floated up. "Dad, is everything okay?" "Come up," I called. He appeared a moment later, stopping in the doorway. Lauren crossed her arms, turning her face away. Ethan looked between us, eyes wary. "Sit down, son," I said. "It's time we all talked." He hesitated, but obeyed, pulling a chair from the corner. I took a deep breath. For years, this house was a home. Then, it became a stage. You let it happen, Ethan. You let her turn it into something hollow because you were afraid to stand up for what's right. He flinched, but didn't deny it. "I know," he said quietly. "I don't blame you," I said. "You thought keeping the peace meant saving the family. But peace without respect isn't peace, it's surrender." Lauren muttered under her breath. "Spare us the lecture." Ethan turned to her, his voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "Don't. Not now." She blinked, startled. He'd never spoken to her like that before. "Dad's right," Ethan said. "I let this happen. I let you run everything while I hid behind excuses. I thought success meant keeping you happy. But all it did was destroy us." Lauren looked at him like she didn't recognize him. "Ethan, please." "No," he said. "I'm done." The room fell quiet again. Outside, the snow kept falling, muffling the world in stillness. Finally, I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folder. "Daniel will be here soon," I said. "He's bringing papers." Lauren frowned. "What papers?" "The legal kind," I said. "The trust documents, the updated will, the residency agreement." "You can't just—" I said. And I have. Moments later, the doorbell rang downstairs. I went to answer it, and sure enough, Daniel stood there, coat dusted with snow, briefcase in hand. "Merry Christmas." "Richard," he said with a knowing smile. "Merry Christmas, old friend." We went back upstairs together. Lauren's eyes widened when she saw him. "What's going on?" Daniel nodded politely. "Mrs. Hall, I'm here to finalize a few matters on behalf of Mr. Hall." Ethan watched, silent. Daniel opened the briefcase and placed a small stack of documents on the desk. "First, the testament changes. Mr. Hall has established that this property remains within the Hall family trust indefinitely. It cannot be sold or mortgaged without his written consent." Lauren's mouth fell open. "That's insane," Daniel continued smoothly. "Second, the new residency terms. Any extended stay by non-owners must be pre-approved in writing. Violation will result in immediate eviction." "Eviction?" she repeated, stunned. "Yes," Daniel said, glancing at me. "Those are the legal terms." Lauren turned to Ethan, voice trembling. "You're not going to let him do this, are you?" Ethan looked at her for a long time, then said softly, "He's doing what I should have done." She sank back into the chair, speechless. Daniel gathered the papers. "All we need now are signatures." I signed first, steady and sure. Daniel handed the pen to Ethan, who hesitated, then added his name beside mine. When he passed it to Lauren, her hand shook. "I'm not signing this," she whispered. "Then you're leaving," I said. The pen clattered onto the desk. For a long time, she just stared at me, hatred and disbelief warring in her eyes. Then finally she stood. "You're heartless," she said. "No," I said quietly. "Just done being used." She walked past me down the hall, slamming the bedroom door behind her. Daniel exhaled softly. "That's done," he said. Ethan sank into the chair, burying his face in his hands. "Dad, thank you." "Don't thank me," I said. "This isn't the end. It's just the truth finding its place again." Daniel packed up the documents and left. I stood by the window watching the snow swirl outside. Ethan came to stand beside me. What happens now? Now, I said, we rebuild. On honesty this time. He nodded, and for the first time he looked like the man Helen and I had raised, not the boy who'd spent 5 years apologizing for someone else's mistakes. When he went downstairs to make coffee, I stayed by the window, the cold light of morning washing over me. The house was quiet again, not empty, not lonely, just quiet. And for the first time since Helen's death, that quiet felt like peace. Christmas morning dawned cold and bright, the kind of still, brittle light that makes every sound ring clear, the crunch of frost underfoot, the soft groan of tree branches heavy with snow. I stood at the kitchen counter pouring coffee into the same chipped mug I'd used for decades. The house was finally quiet. No chaos, no shouting, no lists of demands. Just peace, the kind that had been missing for years. Ethan came in wearing an old sweater of mine hair, still a mess, but his face softer than I'd seen it in a long time. "Morning, Dad," he said quietly. "Morning," I replied. "You sleep at all?" "A little," he smiled faintly. The quiet helped. That's what happens when there's no one screaming about hors d'oeuvre. He chuckled, rubbing his hands together. "I still can't believe she's gone." "She'll be fine," I said. "People like Lauren always land somewhere soft, probably convincing someone new how perfect she is." Ethan didn't answer. He just stood by the window watching the light break across the snow. "Franklin called last night," he said finally. "He told me to thank you. Said you did what none of us had the courage to do." I shrugged. I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because someone had to remind her that actions have consequences. He nodded slowly. "Still, you made them see her for what she really was. They needed to see it," I said. "And you did too." He sighed, hands in his pockets. "It's strange. The house feels bigger now. Empty space is what freedom feels like," I said. He smiled again, small but real this time. "So, what now? Do we just pretend this never happened?" "No," I said. "We remember, we learn, then we move forward." He nodded and walked toward the stove, fumbling with the coffee pot. "You know, Mom would have loved this morning," he said after a pause. "The snow, the calm. She hated noise." I smiled softly. "She used to say quiet was where truth lived." Ethan looked up. "She'd be proud of you." "I hope so," I said. Took me long enough to stop letting people walk over me. We ate breakfast in near silence, just the occasional creak of the old floorboards and the faint hum of the heater. It felt right. Around 9, the doorbell rang. Ethan frowned. Who could that be? I raised an eyebrow, only one way to find out. He opened the door, and to our surprise, Franklin stood there, tall, solemn, his heavy coat dusted with snow. "Mr. Howard," I greeted, setting my cup down. "Didn't expect to see you again so soon." He stepped inside, shaking off the cold. "I wanted to thank you in person, Mr. Hall, for your honesty and your restraint. Most men would have exploded long before you did." "I did explode," I said, with a wry smile, just quietly. Franklin chuckled. "The best kind. You handled something ugly with dignity. My family owes you an apology for believing her lies for so long." "No apology needed," I said. "You saw the truth when it mattered." He looked around the house, nodding slowly. Still standing, he murmured, "That says a lot about you." "I build things to last," I said simply. He smiled. "Ethan, I also wanted to speak with you. Don't lose hope because of her mistakes. You've got potential. When the dust settles, call me. There might still be a place for you in my company." Ethan blinked, stunned. "Thank you, sir. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll start over," Franklin said, then turned to me. "Merry Christmas, Richard. You've reminded my whole family what accountability looks like." He shook my hand firmly and left. The door clicked shut, and Ethan turned to me, eyes wide. He just offered me a second chance. "Then take it," I said. "But do it right this time." He nodded, determination lighting in his eyes. "I will." When he went upstairs to make the call, I stayed where I was staring at the snow falling beyond the window. The quiet filled the room again, but this time it felt alive, not empty. On the table lay one of Helen's old Christmas cards, the last one she'd written before she passed. The handwriting had faded, but the message was still clear. Love lasts when respect stays. I traced the words with my thumb, the edges soft from age. "You were right," I whispered. The phone buzzed once. A message from Lauren. "I'm leaving town. Don't worry, you won't hear from me again. Tell Ethan I'm sorry if that still matters." I stared at the words for a moment before deleting the message. No reply. Some endings didn't need punctuation. By noon, the house was warm again. Ethan came back downstairs, eyes bright. "He wants me to meet his partners next month," he said. "I think this could actually work." "Good," I said. "Make something you can be proud of." He smiled. "Merry Christmas, Dad. Merry Christmas, son." We clinked our coffee mugs together. No champagne, no noise, no grand meal, just two men who'd finally found their footing after years of walking on glass. Later that afternoon, I stepped outside. The air bit at my skin, but the sky was pure, endless blue. The neighborhood was still the only footprints in the snow leading from my porch to the mailbox. Inside was a small envelope, no return address, just my name. I opened it, expecting another formality. Instead, there was a single line written in unfamiliar handwriting. Sometimes peace isn't given. It's reclaimed. No signature. But somehow I knew it was from Franklin. I folded it carefully and slipped it into my coat pocket. When I walked back inside, the fire was burning, the tree lights softly glowing, and Ethan was humming quietly as he fixed lunch. The simple, ordinary rhythm of life, the kind Helen used to say, was the real miracle of Christmas. I sat down by the fire, hands wrapped around my mug, watching the snow through the window. The world outside looked new again, untouched. For years I thought revenge meant shouting, proving fighting. But I'd learned something far simpler. Real revenge was peace, the kind that made your enemies choke on their own silence. I took a slow breath, feeling it fill my chest, warm and steady. Maybe Helen had been right all along. Justice doesn't come from rage, it comes from finally choosing yourself. I looked toward the stairs where Ethan was moving about toward the walls that still held Helen's laughter and whispered, "Merry Christmas, love. We're home again." Outside, the wind picked up sweeping snow from the eaves, and for the first time in 5 long years, the house felt alive, like it remembered who it belonged to. And as the fire crackled and the light faded into the golden hush of evening, I realized something simple, something final. Peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of respect. And I had it back. If you've ever found your own peace after years of being unheard, leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about family, truth, and redemption.